Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Reputation Igniter podcast. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, write a review if you feel so inclined, because we are here to bring value to you and your HVAC business. I'm really excited about our guest today. We've got Greg Crumpton. Thanks for being on, Greg.
Chris, I'm thrilled to be here. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that HVAC people have a voice, and we've used it for years, but it's been mostly talking to the windshield of our truck. So now we actually get to use it for a useful purpose. So thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to dive into all the knowledge that's tucked up inside that brain of yours. And so again, if you're tuning in, this podcast is specifically meant to serve you, the HVAC business owner. And number one, obviously, we're, of course, bringing on industry experts like Greg here, but more importantly, and this is where I found just sort of a gap in the market, and something that a lot of my clients as well as my listeners were wanting was hearing more stories about people who are actual HVAC owners, kind of talking and speaking in their zone of genius. And so please stay tuned. Obviously, I'm going to have Greg, who owned an HVAC business for 15 years before he sold it out to Service Logic. He's going to be speaking a little bit about his zone of genius today. And so this is really a show for you guys, to serve you guys. And the reason is because we are, as entrepreneurs, are being so demonized out there by mainstream media. They think we're money hungry and greedy and all these other things, which are just not true. And we got to fight back. We got to stick together, especially as you are out there putting bread and food on the table for your family, serving and protecting the employees that are inside your organization, and then out there tirelessly serving your communities. And so we want to support, give back to you guys, and make sure that you are equipped with the best possible opportunity to succeed in business, because, as I always like to say, we're trying to create the only ultimate barrier to entry into our industry is the level of professionalism with which you have to execute your operation, so that we can make the trades sexy again. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. So without further ado, Greg, thank you so much for being on. I know you've been 42 years in the HVAC industry, so you definitely have paid your dues. 15 years you had your own business. You were bought out by Service Logic. I think you operated that with your wife too, which is just awesome to hear that you're doing that. And I think it was called Airtight Mechanical. I think you're repping it with your shirt there, which I absolutely love. Yeah, bringing old school, and we'll talk a little bit about old school later on here, but let's kind of jump in. I know that, you do a lot of training and recruiting, and you're kind of helping in the service realm for Service Logic. So maybe let's start there, because I think a lot of the things that I hear consistently in our industry is that people are struggling to hire, struggling to recruit. And maybe you could just share some insight, maybe in terms of like what Service Logic is doing, if you're allowed to share that, of course, but maybe, or better yet, what you were doing at Airtight to help you kind of grow, so that we can understand, hey, how do we get the next generation interested in our industry? How do we get the next generation engaged in our interest or in our industry? Because I think that is usually the hardest thing with, millennials and Gen Zers, right? Is and I guess I'm kind of in there, is, chasing the butterflies, so to speak, instead of really being willing and wanting to put in that hard work and perseverance. So, feel free to jump in there wherever you see fit to kind of start that whole conversation.
Well, Chris, that is a big, wide range of topics. So first of all, I think what you're doing is super noble. Being able to have these conversations with business owners is really important, because these are real life things that they face every day. There's a plethora of work out there. You can get all the work you want. The challenge is getting the right kind of work, and then having the right skilled technicians or installers, or even office and sales and project management people to fulfill that work, and at the proper level of professionalism. And as you so well said, that's got to be the barrier of entry, is let's keep this thing moving in such a professional way that it's looked at as the profession that it should be. This is not a fly-by-night industry, although some people want it to label it that way.
Sure.
So big topic, but I'll start back. You asked what we did at Airtight. And I can tell you that when we started Airtight, 1999, and it was my wife and I, and we started in our house. bonus room, like a lot of people do, with one technician who had worked for me at a previous company. And we grew that into a 40-person, $15 million company over the 15 years. We did that by taking care of customers. And the only way you can really take care of your customers is by having a staff with you along for your journey that just knocks it out of the park at a customer service level. And that could be anything. And I'll just give you a few examples of what we did that were successful for us. 24/7, we had an employee answer the phone. We never used a third party answering service. We were young and early adopters of technology. So we had computers in the trucks. We had printers in the trucks in the year 2000. We could print a PDF document rather than a handwritten work order way back then. So we were always trying to deliver a professional quality, even when we were in our infancy. We knew we wanted to start that way. As we grew into having to hire additional people and fill different roles, we always fell back on our education centric mindset. And what I mean by that is we trained our people really, really well, whether it was OEM training at all the major manufacturers or whatever we were working on, we trained for. But we also trained in soft skills. How do you talk to a customer when you walk into their building? The building's hot. Everybody wants to kill them because they're running the building. And how do you spray a little water on the fire to bring the temperature down so that you can have that good fluid conversation with the property owner so you can find out what's going on, communicating what you're going to do, communicating what you did, communicating what's next, so that you're able to bring a level of, back to professionalism. You're going there with the intention of solving their problem. And you can solve a problem really well. And if they aren't in the loop as the problem is being solved, their level of anxiety may still be really high. But if you can communicate and bring that level of anxiety down with each step you're taking to remediate the problem and get their building back online, that typically goes a long way. So we worked a lot on soft skills training. We were a union company when we started, and our guys elected to get out of the union. They said they felt like we as a company would take better care of them than the union did. So what I did was replicate the union apprenticeship program that I went through as a young person, a 4-year program where you worked during the day and you went to school at night. We replicated that program with the local technical schools. It had one on the south side of Charlotte, one on the north side, and we partnered with them. So we would do tuition, payment, books, everything, full scholarship, as long as they maintained a B or above average. And we provided a lot of good people really nice educations that to this day are still friends of mine, and some still work at the company, and Service Logic still owns that company. So we just always led with education, always led with professionalism, and always figured out a way to say yes to the customer's problem. Even if it wasn't in our wheelhouse, we would help them get the help they needed. So we just try to be a resource and not just a generic Joe contractor.
Well, what I love there, Greg, and correct me if I'm hearing you wrong, but like you said, focuses on education, like educating your guys, then also helping them deliver a professional level experience to the customer, and then that kind of just rolls into making sure that the customer's problem was solved no matter what it was. Really what you're doing, the whole arc of all of that is you are investing, right? You're investing in your people from an education standpoint, then you're investing in them from a professional standpoint of them being able to actually, provide and execute on the education that they have. And then you're investing in your customer, realizing that it's a lifelong, hopefully, relationship, or at least the life of them situation. And so it's just about investing in your community from that standpoint, starting with the person on your team.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the customer education portion. We did a lot of what I called lunch and learns or evening
Hmm.
sessions where we would bring our customers in, whether it be a property management company, maybe it was a data center provider, their staff. We would bring them in and work on what they needed to work on. Maybe it was basic electricity. Maybe it was, basic refrigeration or air conditioning. We would teach them what they wanted to learn. We didn't set the requirement or we didn't set the course. We asked what they needed help with. And we would bring in like competing property management companies. Like we would bring in CBRE and JLL into the same room
Hmm.
and we would have dinner and then we would have an education session. And people were like, well, you can't mix people like that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm about the industry. I don't care what color shirt you're wearing. And
Yeah.
we had great success with that as well.
Now, would you say like was Airtight mostly residential, part commercial, or was it mainly commercial, part residential, or what?
We
You know.
were 100% commercial, industrial, with a heavy focus on mission critical data center, MRI, chillers, anything that we felt like some people were apprehensive to jump in because I
Yeah.
grew up in that world of working in the
Sure.
mission critical world. We were quick to jump on work like that because we were comfortable with it, and
Yep.
we kind of built our reputation upon that kind of work. Now we did generic work. Don't get me wrong. We
Sure.
served many rooftop units for commercial office buildings and office warehouse space, but no residential. But I had such admiration for well-run residential companies because God knows that's a tough business dealing with the public, especially the public at their home. So
Right.
huge respect for the guys and ladies that do that well, and there are a lot of them that do it well.
Yep.
But big respect for that.
Love it. Well, and I think to your point, maybe help me understand, like, and maybe because Service Logic has now taken over your organization, that and you're now in this new digital age, does that how you're sort of disseminating that training, that education, has that shifted? Is that still physically in person, building those connections? Has it shifted online? I guess I'd be curious to know what the evolution maybe has been here, because we've kind of headed into the the 2020s, so to speak, versus like where you were starting off back in the 2000s. Has that evolved at all?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, and a great question too, because when you hire people nowadays, you don't hire with the anticipation that they get to go make 8 hours pay. That's kind
Sure.
of the barrier to entry. What are you able to offer an employee that is above and beyond what they can get at the other shop across the street or down the road?
Yeah.
We find in Service Logic, we have over 7,000 employees and 4,500 service vehicles and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to those relationships of what happens between the service manager and the technician, what happens between the dispatcher and the technician and the customer. So everything is micro for us. We're not big and paint everything white and call it good. We
Right.
really focus on our relationships, and when we buy and when we acquire a company, we don't rebrand it. We leave the original name
Yeah.
as it is because those are built on relationships. And we've got a company that was started in 1948 and it still operates by its original name because of the relationships that they built locally. So what we've done is we've taken our educational offering. It's called
Hmm.
The Edge. Uh,
Okay.
that is the Service Logic educational platform. And what we do with that is offer local training and systemic training. So if our company in Little Rock, Arkansas wants a class on combustion boilers, um, what do we offer them versus what we offer people in Miami through the Edge platform can be different because they need different things based on their geography.
Sure.
But then we will have a national class where everybody could come on uh, dispatch and operations of service, because those things tend not to be as geographically based as the equipment side of what we're going to work on. So we run a big training program. We started it right before COVID broke out, and we had to kind of, like the rest of the world, put that on pause a
Sure.
bit. But so we're now in our going into our third year of really going gangbusters with this platform. It's been so well accepted, Chris, that when you ask people what they want to be educated on, sometimes they're a little bit taken aback because nobody's
Sure.
ever asked them that before.
Yeah.
It's usually, hey, you're going to this class on Honeywell zone dampers, and the guy's like, oh, okay, I'll go. But when we do our research and we ask our technicians and we ask our project managers and our, all the way through, we have senior leadership training, of how to get from, being a lead project manager into a vice
Sure.
president of operations role. We have this ladder program that people can grow with, but it's all based on their need and their want, as opposed to just what the boss thinks they need. So
Yeah.
It's digital and in person both. So I feel like it's a good hybrid.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I think, making sure that these guys and gals are invested in is a good, important piece. But let's kind of flip to the other side, to the operational side, and talk about, one of the things you had mentioned is like the importance of maintenance programs for keeping these people gainfully employed throughout the year and not having these kind of humps and slumps that most businesses, right, go through. And how do you kind of tackle that, right? And I mean, you can speak from the commercial side, but maybe also like how, somebody even on the residential side can think through that framework, a proper framework to kind of set their business up for success year round.
Yeah. Selling preventive maintenance agreements for us is that's the core of our business, because we understand we have historical data year over year, month after month, to look at where our revenue is made, and it's made with our recurring revenue customer. And we know the exact dollars that we're going to be able to pull through that customer for every dollar of maintenance. So we really, I would, well, I can't speak for other companies. I can tell you that we put a tremendous amount of discipline, dedication, and money behind training our maintenance sales reps, MSRs. And they're tasked with going out and finding new maintenance agreements. What that does for us is we understand that everybody has 2,000 or so man hours available per technician.
Yep.
And our goal is to be able to provide every technician with 1,000 man hours of maintenance. So half of their year is and obviously it's not a linear equation. It's not half a year, but half of their time is spent with maintenance customers. And if they're doing their job right and they're predicting and finding problems, and they're not compensated on commission. All of our people are W-2 hourly folks with no commission paid for repairs or replacements or anything. But we encourage them to find real problems, because that's the whole point of doing maintenance, is so your after hours emergencies are not huge. That should be the exception and not the norm. So if you're doing maintenance well, what you're doing is providing a predictable revenue stream. You can do your math and figure out, it's all over the board, but somewhere around, an additional $2.50 or $3 is going to come off that maintenance dollar.
Yeah.
It allows you to budget better. It allows you to do everything from capital planning. So you can know, okay, if we continue to grow at this clip, we're going to have to add 2 trucks next year. I've got to be able to afford those 2 trucks day one so I can put them in a profit-making mode. So selling maintenance and having a structure around that really helps us run our business a lot more efficiently. Um, and then to your point, it takes the shoulder season or the slat humps and bumps, whatever you said, out of our scheduling because we know when we're able to schedule our spring maintenance and we're able to schedule our fall and summer. It gives us that opportunity to forecast where we are manpower wise, what our hour bank of PMs to be done is. Do we want to double up and have a young apprentice go with a seasoned journeyman in the fall when we actually do have some breathing room to go get somebody else acclimated with that equipment and or that facility? So we use it as a tool, but it sure helps a lot of the anxiety around
Sure.
those shoulder seasons.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of those principles are universal from,
Sure.
both the residential and the commercial side. And so being able to kind of, figure that out. And I like the idea of like what you were talking about is like, hey, have a target of 1,000 hours of maintenance, for your guys, realizing, like you said, that the additional stuff is going to come as long as you know your numbers. I think that's an important piece is you got to know your numbers, right? So that you know
Absolutely
what to plan for, how to plan for it. And then also more importantly, how to find the gaps, right? So that you know what are our new targets? What are we trying to hit, and how are we going to, get everybody in position to kind of make that happen. So.
Well, I think what it does, Chris, it goes back to the professional thing. It helps you run your business in a professional manner.
Yeah.
Because if you have 1,000 hours of maintenance and you're going to find at least $1,000 worth of work between replacements, upgrades, repairs, there's also built-in organic growth in that number. So you're going to grow your headcount of technicians simply by maintaining 1,000 or more hours of maintenance per person. You're going to have to add more technicians because you're going to have enough pull-through work to supplement it. So there's a built-in organic growth tool to having a solid and growing maintenance base in place.
Absolutely. Well, I think on top of that, it's like a lot of people probably go through this like yo-yoing and accordion effect, right? Where they get into the shoulder seasons, right? And they start to get desperate, right? Because the dispatch board is empty. They got to get things up there. Then you start to slash prices, cut prices, do discounts, whatever, right? To get people through the door. And really, in a way, your poor planning maybe, or your lack of planning, or maybe you just ran out of time, right? And that's something that's structural and you could kind of fix that. But you're almost, putting yourself in a position to get desperate, but you're also creating a lot of not just friction, but complication and complexity in your organization unnecessarily so, right? Where you're having to adapt and people are having to relearn things unnecessarily so just to, capture the business at the moment. And that just kind of puts you in a bit of a vicious cycle. Would you say that that's, something that typically happens and that, proper planning can prevent that?
Absolutely. I think what you really have to do is start, Stephen Covey, or start with the end in mind. What are you trying to build? Are you trying to build a business that you enjoy running, you enjoy operating, you enjoy participating in? Or do you want to be a fireman, And some people enjoy hair on fire, running around crazy. Some people like that. I don't like that. I like structure and I use my calendar because I do like structure. But it goes back to little bitty things like when you do well on a job, instead of buying an additional round of golf or another week's vacation, put that money aside and use that for a week's worth of training for one of your up and coming stars in the winter. So when you do have that slow season, you've got money in escrow, so to speak, to use to train. Because what happens, and I don't think this is just in the HVAC business, but people know when things are not going well. From the receptionist to the lead installer to the greatest service technician, they can read the company. They get a vibe for it. And when people start not feeling secure, they start listening to those little voices in their head. They start listening to the little voice in the parking lot at the parts house. They start taking that after hours phone call from those people telling them how good it is over there. And you don't need that. You need to be able to build a foundation where people don't have to be concerned about, oh God, it's October. Am I going to get the deer hunt full time this year because we don't have enough work? So I
Yeah.
think it really starts early, but it starts in your financial planning of having your finances prepared for slow seasons so you can use that money that you were making in August when it was 1,012 degrees. Use that later, that fall or in the next winter to prepare your business to grow to one more step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, again, I like what you're saying there is I think it's so easy, especially when social media abounds and everybody's got the nice shiny things, right? To go out there and want to, dump it into something that is going to at least, feel good or feel like an accomplishment in a way. And you have accomplished something and definitely we're celebrating. But to your point, how do you make that, how do you turn that into fuel, right? For the business to continue to grow and the planning there. Um, Maybe we kind of shift gears here. I hadn't thought about this. We hadn't discussed this prior. So if I'm catching you off balance, you let me know. But how do you feel like, these types of maybe skills, processes, systems that one needs to build into their business, like you're talking about with planning and, forward thinking, all that. How does that play into somebody? Because like you just said, Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. Somebody's got an HVAC business. I would imagine that most people aren't anticipating that at some point they're just going to get too tired and too stressed out or burn out or whatever, and they're going to close their doors, right? And just kill the whole operation, send the people that are, long time employees out packing and stuff like that. But, the statistic is shattering or, stunning. It's like 70% of businesses will just simply close their doors, right? So in regards to sort of scaling a business, but scaling it in order to kind of market it at some point to somebody else to buy. What do you think are maybe kind of the key ingredients or the things that you baked into your recipe? Obviously, Service Logic being one of the bigger players in the industry, gobbling you up. What would you say, some maybe words of advice or guidance in terms of, things that you need to get right earlier rather than later inside your business so that, when that time comes, it's not a scramble for the last 3 years of your business to just kind of button up things to keep it together long enough that the wheels don't fall off and somebody, deposits the money in your account.
Well, I can tell you that it requires discipline. It requires planning, forward thinking, all those things that we don't have time to do when we're running a business, to be honest. So you have to decide, and I kind of said it a while ago. Do you want to have a business that you're in charge of, that you own and operate, or you're a key part of, that you're able to enjoy and manage and participate in without feeling like it's such a burden on your life that you just want to pull your hair out most days? Mostly what I have found is the financial discipline. When we start acquiring companies, and we've acquired 125 companies in the last 13 years, so we know how to do it well.
Yeah.
We know what to look for. We know what to stay away from. The companies that earn the most money on sale day have a big recurring maintenance base. So it's repeatable money. It's budgetable money, if that's even a word, budgetable. So you can predict what your revenue is going to be next year based on your contracted maintenance base. And having some financial tools in place, and they don't have to be crazy, $50,000 packages to maintain your accounting. You can run a successful business with some fairly benign and easily affordable financial tools and or help. Because we as service technicians, I can tell you, when I was a tech, nobody taught me. So I wasn't learning about vapor compression one day and financial discipline the next day. I was all in on the technical piece, and I had to go back to school at night. Once I figured out I wanted to go into the business side of it, I went to school to learn accounting. I didn't go for a degree. I just went to learn the basics so I know what the heck I was even starting. But it's the financial discipline, it's understanding your cost. And there's so many contractors that I speak to, residential, commercial, it doesn't matter. They don't understand what their true costs are. Overhead or actual cost. You see, you walk through somebody's warehouse and you see 9 empty DeWalt drill boxes, the plastic cases, and they don't know where the drills are for them. Well, you've got to figure all that stuff out. You got to keep your cost, and tools are cost, whether you're reimbursing or you have a tool allowance or whatever.
Yeah.
Vehicle cost, understanding your consumption of your fuel. How are you recouping your fuel cost? Do you have a truck fee? Are you charging for stuff like compressed gas, welding, soldering, all these specific things that you keep on your service van that you're using? Are you able to recoup your cost or cost plus in order to make that tube of 15% sulfos that you're having to buy occasionally? How do you replenish that? Did you build it into a job and it got left on the job? You just have to really understand your cost. And cost of operations. You have to understand that when you have your 3 kids' cell phone on your company expenses, that's okay as long as you know it's baked in there and you can relatively easily carve that out, because when a company comes to want to acquire you, they're going to carve all that stuff out. So the easier you make it, the more money you're going to make on sale day, because the less hoopla that you have to go through while you're trying to figure out the value of your company. So financial discipline, understanding your cost, and having your people comfortable. I know that's a weird word, but the mojo of the company has to be solid, and you can feel it. I can feel it when I walk into an office or a shop. If there's harmony and there's goodwill and laughter and people ribbing each other, and you know that you're probably in a pretty healthy place. But if you walk through there and it's quiet, and you've got, like, here's your customer complaint department starts here, and all this crap that you don't want in your culture, you can kind of get a good vibe for it. So you just have to really know what you're trying to do and where you want to go.
Love it. That makes complete sense. So awesome, Greg. Well, I want to wrap up with this question. And this is because I feel like all my guests have something burning inside them that they want to share when they've got an audience like this. What's the one question you wish I had asked you?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question before, Chris. I think, and we've kind of eluded around it, and I don't know that I have an answer for it, but I want everybody to ponder on it. Okay. How do we create a pull to our industry? How do we not have to feel like we're recruiting 24/7, because we all do? Yeah. How do we, when you go to the car wash and you're getting your wife's car washed or your truck washed or whatever, and you spot that kid that's got a little spark, a little extra pep in the step, that makes good eye contact, that vacuums your car well, and is just the kind of kid you want to embrace, do it. Put your arm around them, give them your business card, ask them to breakfast. What are they wanting to do in life? You've got to figure out, we have to continue to figure out guerrilla marketing. And if every person in the industry would reach their arm around one young person or two, we would be quickly out of this crisis we're in on labor shortage. There are a tremendous amount of good kids out there. You hear it with every generation. Oh, this generation of kids this, and this generation of kids that. You and I both had that when we were kids. People said
Yep.
that about us,
Uh-huh.
and we turned out okay.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to, grab one by the hand and lead them to where we can help them get somewhere in life, because it's not a fun world out there if you don't have a
No.
sense of what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, and who you're going to do it with. And that's what
Yeah.
people want. They want a community. They want somebody who gives a crap about them, and somebody who can help mentor them into that next level. Maybe it's the kid pushing the carts at the grocery store up the hill, because they always seem to be uphill going to the grocery. But find those young people, talk to them.
Yeah.
That's what that's my question, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, I think the question you wish I had asked you is how do we get, these kids into the industry, right? How do we get it attractive? And I think too, it's, and maybe this is just my generation, right? But it's one of those things that we constantly hear people like, oh, it lacks purpose. And, I don't have a clear defined why behind it. Right. And I think that, if you do step into somebody's life that's that young and, you're a seasoned business owner or a seasoned technician or a seasoned, service manager, something like that, there's a lot that you can offer that person that they're not going to get on TikTok or, I don't even know. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones out there. There's
Instagram.
But yeah, Instagram and Facebook and stuff like
But
that. Snapchat. That's what I was trying to think of that I was drawing a blank on. But yeah.
Well,
And
think about it this way, Chris. We go to church with people. We coach Little League with people. We're in scouts with people. We go to the park. We see people everywhere. And, it's so easy for us not to talk to young people because they're in their own world or whatever, or we're in our own world.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take that much to engage, and you will know quickly if they're interested. But there's a tremendous amount of kids that are interested. They just don't know how to get started.
Right. Yep. And sometimes they just need that nudge, and they need somebody to come alongside them, like you're saying, I think, to just, the world's throwing enough garbage at you.
Absolutely.
Just have a little bit of a protector there. So awesome. Well, I love it, Greg. Thank you so much for being on. I really do appreciate you. If somebody does want to get a hold of you, I know that you've got a pretty cool podcast, straight out of Crumpton. So what, love the hat. How can somebody get in contact with you if they did want to pick your brain, if they did want some guidance, some expertise or a little bit of insight, or, just to connect after what you shared today? How can they do that?
Well, I would love that. I do that a good deal. I never get tired of doing it because I love to help people figure out that question they're struggling with. So I'm always free to do that. The easiest way to get me is a very difficult website. It's our email is greg@gregcrumpton.com, greg@gregcrumpton.com. Or you can go to gregcrumpton.com and you can see all of my stuff on there, including the Straight Outta Crumpton podcast, some of the companies I'm involved with outside of Service Logic, which is coffee, which is all kinds of fun stuff. But greg@gregcrumpton.com, gregcrumpton.com. Love to connect with you. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. I try to be inspirational to some young folks on there as well. So, Chris, thank you for having me. It's been a blast. I love what you're doing. Keep doing it, because we need people like you that are helping we didn't grow up doing what you're doing. We grew up crawling in attics and basements and garages and crap like that. So you keep doing you so we can keep doing us.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Greg. I appreciate your inspiring words, sir, and I definitely will keep it up. And so thanks again, Greg, for being on. Thank you all for listening. Please, getting the word out, I think, is the most important piece so that we can continue to spread the wisdom that our guests are sharing with us here on this podcast. So again, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, write a review, share it. Just share it with one single person that you know that you think could benefit from just gleaning some industry expert knowledge from other leaders in the industry, but also from other HVAC owners such as yourself listening from their zone of genius so that we can all be better together. Until next time, thank you and stay tuned. Take care. Bye.